we're going to see. We're going to give it a couple of minutes. We're going to kind of do our normal check-in as we normally do. How are we out of 10? Just to kind of kick the stream off. We're going to go into our normal bits that we normally do around kind of little training, mental health, life check-in for myself. The way the streams run for those kind of joining who haven't previously joined, we run through just little check-ins for ourselves mainly, and then we look at doing a kind of a little training section, kind of links probably to the things that I'm dealing with in training at the moment, and then we have a main topic for the day. So it's a bigger video content piece that we're going to do. Today's kind of around men's mental health, I suppose. Mental health awareness, obviously kind of big in November, and this is adapted from a talk I did for Avon and Somerset Police on men's mental health, basically, which is really cool because I had some great feedback after the course of one of the guys who come back recently from being off work with stress, anxiety and depression and stuff like that, and I give some advice in here about well-being and things like that, and he said it was really helpful. So yeah, hopefully we can kind of share some more advice on what men can do and how we can talk and all of those things. I'm just going to double check that everything's coming through, and then once I've figured that out and make sure that everything is coming through, we're going to crack on into the main part of the stream. Sweet, we're good. So, little check-in. Where are we at? So out of 10, I'm a 10. No, I'm a 9 this week. 9 out of 10 on pretty much everything. I'm like managing. I think it'd be a really nice way to say it is I'm managing everything. There's a lot that goes on, right? Like, it's not just me who feels it, surely. There's a lot of times when you're in work mode or you're in whatever mode, and life is just about managing all of the shit. And that's where I feel like I'm at the moment. I feel like I'm juggling a lot of balls, like we all are. But things are on the up. Things are definitely on the up. And I think that's why I'm a 9, because training, it's been a really good week of training so far. I'm sticking to some habits. So some of you may have seen that like the goal for me at the moment is to get back to reading in the mornings. So I used to get up around 4:30, 4:45. Wait, let me turn this off. There we go. I know that doesn't make much of a difference for you guys, but it makes a big difference for me and what I can see and stuff like that. So the main thing is to get back to reading in the morning. So I used to get up about 4:35ish, go down and read for about half an hour. And it was actually one of the most beneficial things I did. So your 20s are for learning and your 30s are for earning is something that, not that I've lived by, but is a very nice saying that helps me to remember that you're early in your career and your best bet right now is to learn as much as you can learn through experiences and through just general learning itself, because the more knowledge I gain, the better I am at my job, the better I am at being able to help you guys with all stuff like this. So we're learning, we're back to where we were, and I spent about 6 months practically focusing on myself quite a bit, so journaling a lot in the mornings rather than anything else, and just trying to like kind of get through the day. I went through a massive period of like just bad sleep, so just dealing with that. But before that, I come away from reading in the mornings because the goal was, and the main decision was, I'm going to put more effort and emphasis on work. So the more effort and emphasis on work just basically meant that I didn't have really the time in the morning to do it. I just had to focus on what I was doing. So yeah, it's really good to get back into that, which again is part of the reason why I'm a 9, and part of the thing that we're going to go into today is we're going to talk about trusting yourself, and you do that through basically saying you're going to do something and just doing it, which is what we've done, which is great. We, from a training perspective, pretty simple, but thrusters are shite. Thrusters may not be shite. I'm shite at thrusters. Thrusters are shite. So in the Athex comp, we've got dumbbell thrusters to do. Basically, on the way out through the thing, you do a 50 cal row, 40 dumbbell thrusters, 30 box jump overs, 20 synchro burpees, 10 sandbag to shoulder. Everything's split apart from the burpees, and then you come all the way back up. So if you split evenly, you'd have 40 thrusters to do. So your boy can kind of push press 25 kilo dumbbells for days, reps, 15 plus, fine. I cannot front squat dumbbells. My lack of tricep mobility is making it difficult, and just the fact that I can't extend my chest. But we're practicing them at the moment. We're putting a lot of stuff in on that, and that's kind of the training section for today, which is prioritize weaknesses. I'll go into like the rest of the check-in in a minute, but we'll do the little training section because it runs quite nicely off of the fact that when you look at your training plan, or you look at what you're trying to achieve from a training perspective, a lot of you may have goals that you're trying to hit. So you'll want to get better. Say it's a very simple goal. You want to get better at squatting, or you want to grow your shoulders, or you want to get fitter, or you want to compete in a certain competition. There is a massive emphasis from me on prioritizing weaknesses to help you to bring up those things that are lagging behind. So breaking this down into different goals, if we take a body compositional goal, so bodybuilders, when they step on stage, a lot of the things that they get judged on is symmetry. So how do they look as they step on stage? Do they look like someone who has a balanced physique? And a balanced physique basically means that everything's in proportion to each other. Like, are their shoulders massive and then they have really tiny arms? Or are their shoulders huge but they've got like a chest that doesn't match their shoulders? Do they have giant quads and then have no glutes? Like, balanced physique means that everything kind of looks the exact way it should do. So when it comes to bodybuilding, when it comes to trying to build muscle, for the longest time, my shoulders were a big weakness for me. They were genuinely something that not that I wasn't good at. I just didn't have very big shoulders. I kept having shoulder injuries, which meant I had to stay away from shoulder movements for ages. And it wasn't until basically like I was lateral raising twice a week for multiple sets, sometimes 3 times a week. I'm putting a massive emphasis on my shoulders, then they started to grow, and then they changed, and now they're probably a strength in my physique. But it was that period of prioritizing weaknesses which really helped me to grow that. And the way you prioritize weaknesses is you would go, I'm going to make sure that is the first thing within my session. So if I'm going to prioritize my shoulders to grow, one of the first things I'm going to do is start my session with a lateral raise. And that's because I want to prioritize the muscle that I'm trying to grow. So if you're someone who wants to grow your quads, anytime you do a leg session, your quads should be the thing that you prioritize. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to do an isolation movement, doesn't necessarily mean you have to do a leg extension then into your big compound movement, but it does mean that the compound movement you pick has a quad emphasis, and then you could go straight into an isolation movement afterwards before following on the rest of it. It's about giving that movement, you got to think from a movement selection perspective, okay? When I create a program and say I've got 5 different leg exercises, I have a back squat, I have a leg press, I have a hamstring curl, a leg extension, and a calf raise. Just say that's my session for the day. The thing that's going to be able to be the heaviest thing lifted will be the thing that I do at the start. And the reason is because I'm going to be most fresh, my legs are going to be most fresh, I'm going to have the most energy because it's the start of the session, and I'm going to be cognitively functioning the best I possibly could, which means that when I go into to do my back squat, I have the most energy, my legs aren't tired, and I can think properly, so the skill of the movement's better. So I'm going to be able to load that movement more. But if I'm trying to grow my quads, having my leg extension, the 4th exercise in this session, doesn't make sense. It would make way more sense that I still do my bigger movement for my quads, so my back squat, and then I do my leg extension, because I'm still going to have energy at the second. Whereas when we get to the kind of 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th movement of the day, I may just have been running out of steam by that point. And if that's the case, then it means that the amount of weight and load I can put through my body through that leg extension is very, very minimal compared to what it could be. And that's part of the thing that we're trying to make sure that we do when we're trying to gain muscle, is put emphasis on that muscle group by trying to progressively overload. So by trying to put more load through that muscle group. And if it's earlier in my session, I will be able to do that. And that's basically the whole goal and the way that you bring up weaknesses. When it comes from weaknesses from a strength standpoint, you would look at the movement and you would see where the movement starts to break down. So if I'm trying to get a bigger 1 rep max in my squat, for example, I need to figure out where does the movement kind of break down. For the longest time for me, it was the fact that my shoulders would round forward when I would squat. So I would do my back squat, because I'm low bar anyway, I'm hinged over, but then my shoulders would round. So one of the things I needed to do was get used to kind of getting my chest upright. And the way I got my chest upright was to start bringing in safety bar squats, because that's going to promote this upright position, which means that because the load of a safety bar is out in front of me, when I come out of the hole, it's going to want to throw me forward, and I have to drive my upper back into that bar. So that weakness of me not being able to keep extended in my squat is something that I can work on through a secondary movement. So weaknesses get prioritized by basically trying to identify what your weakness is and then figuring out what exercise or movements you can do to enhance that weakness. The same comes from a rounded program when you're trying to do hybrid athletes or you're trying to get better at high rocks or CrossFit. Where are you weak and how can you prioritize that? And one of the ways you prioritize it is by having a session, like if it's a session itself focused on a specific characteristic or quality or muscle group or fitness element or skill, that needs to come when you are fresh. So there's no point training for 3 days, battering yourself, and then trying to do your priority session on the thing that you're trying to improve. You're better off doing that when you're fresh after a rest day or at the start of the week or earlier on in the week. Or having an easier session the day before, so it becomes the priority and you have that as a big focus. So prioritize your weaknesses, because it will help you to get stronger overall. The thing that's holding me back in my squat is my quad strength, then it makes sense for me to get bigger and stronger quads, because then that won't be the weakness anymore. So always prioritize your weaknesses, and that kind of rolls over into everything, into all life, into where could I get better is ultimately the question. And then it's about trying to solve it in a logical way. So when it comes to training, the goal is all the time trying to improve your weaknesses so you can get better at whatever it is you're trying to do. And it's just about being aware enough to know what they are, and then having the education to know what you need to do to improve them. So yeah, like for me, as we go into this into this athletics competition, thrusters are my weakness. So the way that I am improving them is I'll be doing them every week in like my main Friday session, my main Friday conditioning session. But then on a Monday, when I do my lower body work, I'm practicing my dumbbell front squats, because that's the thing that's going to be affecting me the most. And on my Tuesday session, I'm prioritizing push press to get used to what that feels like. So even though I split the movement up into the 2 components, I'm prioritizing that as part of the thing that I need to get better at. So prioritize your weaknesses over everything, learn what they are, learn what movements you need to do to help improve them, and make sure that they are a priority session within your week by either doing them after a rest day, doing them early in a week, or doing them after an easy session, not after a couple of hard sessions back to back. Cool. Thrusters are shite. Prioritize your weaknesses. One of the things that I've been thinking about from a mental health standpoint, and obviously we're going to get into the main section probably in about 10-15. I've been thinking about recently what a privilege it is to have the problems that I wished I had. So what a privilege it is to have the problems I wish to have. We wish for a life that we dream of, that we want, and when we get it, when we dream of it initially, when we dream of the life that we want, we don't believe that it's going to come with problems, or at least at this point we're ignorant to the fact that there's going to be problems. When you get that life and you realize that you have problems that come alongside it, that is one of the main moments or reasons or times where you need to be grateful for the fact that you have those problems now, because you once wished for them. And I always think what a privilege it is to have the problems that I wish to have. So right now, I am in a lovely position where I'm having to juggle my personal life and my work. And there is conversations around when people get to a certain stage in life and they've achieved the things that they wanted to achieve, and they turn around and they say, "Oh, I wish I did it differently. I wish I didn't chase the work and I wish I focused on my family." Or I wish I never stopped playing football. Or I wish I didn't give up on that music dream. And at all times when people reminisce about life like that and they think of life regrets, they chose one path or the other. So they chose to prioritize something over something else. One of the things that I've done recently, and this is a big proponent of self awareness, and this is one of the topics we're going to go into deeply in the next couple of weeks. Self awareness for me is being able to know what I want, why I want it, and then managing the friction between wanting two different things and being okay with the trade offs that come when I decide to prioritize one over the other. So I've spoke about the difference between competency or the battle between competency and connection. A lot of the time, for you to be competent in what in the thing is that you're trying to get better at, for you to get to learn the knowledge, to learn the skills, to get better at something, you need to sacrifice connection to some degree because you need to spend a lot of time doing that thing. For example, I could go downstairs at 5 a.m. and read my book with my coffee, or I could lay in bed and say, like, I could be, if I was laid in bed with a partner, I could be laid in bed cuddling my partner. If I was out with the boys on the weekend, I could choose to go out for drinks with them, or I could come in and watch a lecture. I have the choice at all times to choose between the two. And connection is really important to me. Being better at what I'm trying to do, really important to me. And the friction between the two is the thing that I'm juggling. And I think that's called life. And I think that is what everyone is dealing with. We all have multiple things that we want, and we choose what we are going to do. So when you get to the end of your life and you regret the choices that you made, I believe that you weren't self aware enough and you never played it through the whole way. So just play it out. If I focus solely on work and learning and being competent at what I'm trying to do, I would have to make sacrifices. Some of those sacrifices I have to make is connection with friends, family, and loved ones. Do I want to make that sacrifice? If I make that sacrifice and I focus on my work and my competency and gaining knowledge and getting better at whatever I'm trying to get better at, am I okay with the fact that I may lose relationships? I may not find a partner. I may lose friends. I may miss important family events. Am I okay with that trade off? Just play it out. And the way that I've always thought about this is you think of the end in mind. You think of the you led on your deathbed and you looking back over your life and you thinking to yourself, am I happy with the decisions that I made in the life that I decided to create? And I think you can do that retrospect. I think you can do that proactively rather than retrospectively. I think you can sit there being 28, looking into the future, playing out the decisions that I think I want to make through my life, and sitting on my deathbed and looking back and going, did I make the right call? But I don't have to do that when I'm on my deathbed. I can do that right now. And I do that by simply kind of looking, imagining I am that guy on that deathbed and looking back and going, right, you've just made this decision which has sacrificed those things. Am I happy that I did that? Yes, no, yes, no. What is the answer there? That's helped me to realize how important connection is for me. And that's helped me to realize that I simply want the things that I want, but I also I don't want to lose myself, but I don't want to lose connection with people. And the way that I'm approaching this is different seasons and different periods of my life. I've got a week next week where like I want to try and just really get a load of things done that has been on my to-do list from a work perspective for ages. But at the end of the week, I'm going away with a friend. That for me is the perfect balance. I don't have to balance on a day to day. I do not have to balance on a moment to moment or an hour to hour, but I can balance over the week. I can spend 4 to 5 days really focusing on work. I can go away and have a really nice weekend as a reward almost. You don't have to sacrifice everything, but you cannot balance everything moment to moment. You do have to decide to focus on something for a period of time. And just remember that when you're trying to juggle this thing called life, this balance of connection and competency and getting better at something while trying to enjoy the things that you do in life, remember what a privilege it is to have those problems. How nice is it that you have a goal that you're striving for and you've got people that love you, and having a balance between the two? It's a privilege. And it's something that we should all be grateful to have if we have it. And it's something that we should not think of lightly. And we should really take serious note of how important the thing is that we once wished for and how amazing it is to have it in your life. Gratitude is as simple as doing two things. Imagine something I've got that I love, that I lost it. I'd be extremely grateful for that person and that thing right now because I don't have it, if I imagine that and play that out. The next one would be, that's the only one I can think of. The other one's gone into the ether. It's the fairy dust. But imagining the thing that I have, I lost. To me, that's something extremely, that makes me extremely grateful. What a privilege it is to have the problems that I wished I would have. Breaking into the kind of life-checking part of that, it goes along the same thing, which is enjoyment in the process of chasing the goals. So just enjoy this process of chasing the things that you want. Enjoy it, because soon you're going to have the things that you want, and soon the novelty of chasing it's going to be gone. So we just need to ignore the fact that the novelty is ever going to go and be grateful for the fact that we can chase the goals. You can give me a minute. I'm going to get this set up. We're going to go into the main mental health talk, and we're going to start this kind of like next section, but I need to get my brain ready because I've already spoke a lot of nonsense, so I'm going to put a little bit of music on. We're going to jam together and we're going to get ready for this. Honestly though, so streaming now on a Thursday, probably rather than Sunday. I just got a lot going on Sundays. My mum also makes a banging roast dinner, and I don't really want to miss out on that. Let me bring that there. Well, that looks better, doesn't it? I'm actually centre now. Lovely. Yeah, I'm not missing out on that, gang. I got to be honest. It's just going to work better. I can actually get way more like done by doing this. Just spin you around it. Cool. Amazing. I love it. I love it. Right. Let's get into this bit. I'm gonna soup, and we're gonna get going. Oh, it's been a day, gang. I'm not gonna lie. Today, for example, I was up at 5. Literally, alarm went off at 5 to 5, 10 to 5. 10 to 5, got up, went upstairs. New hack. 2 coffees by 6 a.m. Like, I felt great till about midday, and then I crashed. We've had a second wind. We're in. Right, let's do this. Is this going to come up? Oi, here we go. So, this isn't a normal mental health talk. New section. That's for me, so I can find it when we do the clips. But new section. This isn't a normal mental health talk. This mental health talk is going to be about men's mental health, and we're going to find a way to help us talk about our feelings a little bit more. The objectives of today. We want to break the stigma and stereotypes of men's mental health. We want to have a greater understanding of mental health. We want to figure out how to look after your own mental and physical well-being. We want to figure out creating your own work-life balance. Don't know what that means. And we want to have a clear direction of where to go resource-wise, internal and externally. Where can we go? Let me just double-check that 1 minute. Because... Wait there. You're coming back with me going a minute. Wait there. I want to make sure... Yeah, there we go. Let me just delete this page. I knew there was a page that still snuck in there, so we're going to get rid of that. Sick. Cool, we're back. We're back. Don't worry. Play it out. Play it out. Play it out. Let's go. So, clear direction of where we want to go resource-wise, externally, not internally. When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious... When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive. To breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. Gratitude, gang. Gratitude. Men's mental health. So why is it hard to talk, but why we desperately need to? I want to talk about Pat. So when I was 17, if any of you have seen the intro to my YouTube, then you'll know that when I was around 17, we lost Pat to suicide. So Pat was a guy who looked after me when my mum and dad were going through a pretty messy divorce. We would get taken down the rugby club, and the person that would look after me the most was Pat. I would go there, and he would just look out for me. I remember we went to his birthday party once, and it was really cute. Turned up his birthday party. It might have been his 25th or his whatever birthday, and I was a kid still, as young as this. Maybe it was his 21st, and everyone was dressed in toga. So everyone was like Roman, kind of big white cloth over the shoulder thing. And I was like, oh, this is so sick. And I felt really embarrassed because I was just wearing normal clothes. And mind you, I'm like 11 or whatever. And he was like, come with me. And he dressed me in this toga outfit. And I can remember that to this day. And it's one of those things that, like, to have someone pay attention to you and show interest in you as a kid, and to look after you when you're going through problems you don't even know you're going through, it was huge for me. So when we lost Pat to suicide, I know it just devastated me, and that was one of the things which kind of spiraled my mental health into probably the thing that I've been battling ever since. And it's one of the things, don't get me wrong, there was multiple things, but this was one of the ones which kind of made me more aware that I was struggling. And the reason I bring this up is because in 2020, there were 5,642 registered suicides in England and Wales. So it's 10 or / 11 deaths per 100,000 people. Consistent with 2021, around 3/4 of suicide registered in 2022 were males. So this is England and Wales. So 4,000 people died, which 74%, which is males. 77% of men polled have suffered with common symptoms of mental health conditions such as anxiety, stress, and depression. 40% of men have never spoken to anyone about their mental health. The biggest cause of mental health issues in men and men's lives are work, their finances, and their health. And 40% of men polled said it would take thoughts of suicide or self-harm to compel them to get professional help. So 77% of men have suffered with symptoms of common mental health conditions. So 77% of men. But 40% of men have only ever spoke to anyone about their mental health, okay? Which means that we as men just don't talk about it. And we have all of these issues that go on, and a lot of these things we keep under wraps. We don't really talk about work. If work's stressing us, is probably the most common we will talk about. Finances and their health. And for most men, it would take thoughts of suicide or getting seriously close to self-harm or self-harming that would compel them to actually get professional help. So as men, we don't talk and we don't seek professional help. part of the stigma, and why does this stigma kind of exist, is one of the things that I wanted to speak about. So why men don't talk about their mental health is these are the main reasons. So I've learnt to deal with it was 40% of what men said. I've learnt to deal with it. So whatever it is the problem I'm dealing with, I've learnt to deal with it. I don't wish to be a burden to anyone is 36% of what men would say. I don't want to be a burden to anyone because there is a massive part of, we're going to go into the boy crisis a little bit, which is a lecture series that I'm watching from the Peterson Academy, and basically trying to figure out why boys and men are struggling. And it's a question that's been on my mind because I went through a bad period of mental health throughout this year, and I was questioning, is it just me? Or is just no one else talking about it? Like, or is it why always me? Right, that statement, which is dangerous in itself. But a massive part of it, I think, is because men don't want to be a burden. And when you look at the majority of middle-aged suicides, it comes down to the fact that men would rather go take themselves off into the woods, would dispose of themselves rather than being a burden to anyone else. Because when men feel like they're a burden on society and they're not kind of contributing and adding to society, that's when that feeling of being a burden heightens, and that is when that feeling of I shouldn't be here, I don't belong here comes up. And that is why you get a lot of stats where men are the majority of people who end up taking their own life. Another thing people would say is I'm too embarrassed, or there's a negative stigma around this type of thing, which we're going to hopefully break today. And I don't want to admit that I need support. So it's hard for a lot of men to accept that maybe something's wrong and maybe I do actually need help. I don't want to appear weak, 16% of men, and I have no one to talk to, 14% of men. I have no one to talk to. When, if part of the reason that men don't talk about their mental health, if part of the reason that men don't talk about their mental health is that they have no one to me, that almost kills me. Because there are so many groups now that are being created. We do the talk, we do the bros sesh down in our gym. There are talk clubs, literally talk club. There is Andy's Man Club. We do this stream for this reason. There are, if you can go into a gym and find a gym which is pretty social, you can find a group of people there, not necessarily to talk to, but to become friends with, to get used to. Because I have no one to talk to about this. Is really hard. It's really, really hard because you're struggling and you don't want to appear weak. You don't want to admit you need support. There's this negative stigma around it and you're too embarrassed to own up, or you don't feel like you want to be a burden to anyone. So you do just learn to deal with it. Not because you should, but because you feel like you have to. And this comes down to a lot of the problem with the boy crisis, which is a lot of men just feel like that they have this need within them to be someone who is strong, because strong men basically are what creates the world. The problem is everyone believes that they're weak for having struggles and issues. Whereas I actually think if you can admit your weaknesses and you've stared your weaknesses and you've been taken out of the knees, you've had such a bad time of things that you've had no choice but to stare into the mirror and kind of question who you are, because you are broken. You've hit rock bottom. You've not given up, but you've had a real struggle and a real hard time. And you've had to look at yourself and you've had to then go, right, I need to pull myself out of it. Those are the men that for me are the strongest, because you've hit the depth, you've seen what it's like, and you've figured out a way to come out of it. Yes, I've learned to deal with it to some degree can be good, but if you're suppressing all the emotions and you're not dealing with it in some way, shape, or form by talking to someone or by journaling or by figuring it out yourself, there is a problem there. And I think trying to figure out how we can get men to open up is going to be really, really important. So this is what men do. Basically, the world's burning around them and they're like, you know what? Your boys sound. We all do it. I know loads of people that do it. These feelings are 100% real, and it's hard for us to get past this stage. I've learned to deal with it. I don't want to be a burden to anyone. I'm too embarrassed. All of those things. It's hard for us to get past this stage. We question all of our beliefs except for the ones that we really believe in, and those we never think to question. Orson Scott. Let's talk about the boy crisis. So the boy crisis comes about as to an explanation as to why men might be struggling and boys might be struggling with their mental health. And part of that reason is because there is a massive link to like having absent fathers within the home. So not having a positive male role model can really affect a young man's life and development as he grows older. With the situation I was in with my family when I was a kid, my dad was either working away or I was split between 3 or 4 different homes. So like I didn't have like this constant male role model in my life, and because at the time my dad was dealing with chaos in his life, it was hard for him to be that role model that I needed at the time, because I didn't really know what I needed, and he had so much going on. It was hard for him to kind of be there in that sense, which meant that like absent fathers, either fathers that are there but just not emotionally or just engaged with the child, or just genuinely not there in general, means that there's no kind of guide and path and blueprint to follow. One of the biggest indicators that men are going to grow up to be good and to treat people right is to see their father treating their mother in a nice way, right? Their father loving their mother. And if you don't see that, then it creates this kind of distorted view of relationships, and it can be quite difficult as you grow older. When you look at prisons, men make up the majority of prisons, and like that is where men go for their rehab to some degree, even though some prisons aren't there for rehab. And the reason I say about this is because men are struggling and men don't really know where to go. And understanding the causes of this is really important. Since the big change that's happening now and maybe happened over the past kind of 10, 15 years is like women make up the majority of universities now. And there is a massive thing in the dating world at the moment where there's a lot of women who can't find a partner, or they can't find a partner which is right for them. And there's a lot of men who struggle to do the same. So I've got some friends that tell me that on one side of the coin, that there is no ambitious men out there. Whereas I look at all of me and my friends and I'm like, me and all my mates are stupidly ambitious. We've got loads that we're doing and kind of chasing. And when I think about that, I think maybe I'm in a small group and subset of people. Maybe we're all striving towards goals. Maybe we're all ambitious and it's just the friendship group that I've got. And maybe there's a lot of people that aren't like that. But you've got women saying on one side you've got this. So you've got women now, and don't get me wrong, not in a bad sense, but we're talking about men's mental health here and why men could be struggling. So women go into university, so the higher paid jobs can be fulfilled by both men and women, which means that for a lot of men who work blue collar jobs, they work kind of in construction, or they're on building sites, or they're binmen, or they are working out in the oil rigs, or they're working at sea, or they're doing all of these things, who may not be earning tons and tons of money compared to their academically educated and corporate female like partners. It means that there can be a disparity not only in wage but in intelligence, and that means that there's women now who do not need a provider are in this position where they are picking from a group of men that they don't necessarily want to pick from because they're not ambitious enough or they're not on the same level or whatever. The problem with that is then it creates a group of men who do not have a core thing within them. Men get kind of value from two places. The two places being they get value from providing, or they get value from going to war. So men for the longest time would be sent off to war, or they would be sent to provide. So they're not necessarily in the home. That's the traditional setup of things, which would be like normal kind of wife at home with wife and kids, men out kind of earning money. But that's not the state of things anymore. And because that's not the state of things, not a bad thing, but because that's not a state of things, you now have women who don't necessarily need a provider, they need a companion. But you have a bunch of men without any innate worth, value, or purpose and meaning, because the purpose and meaning which was inbred in men, which was go fight, go provide, is now gone, right? Not a bad thing, just needs a period of adjustment, but a bad thing on some kind of sides. And I think that's because, and I think this is where a big part of the stigma comes in. One of the things I struggled with, and probably struggling with, is the fact that I like the traditional way of things, in the sense of I, from a selfish perspective, get a lot of meaning out of being someone who could provide. That meaning for me, on a selfish perspective, even though it's a selfless act to go and work from kind of sunrise to sunset to some degree to provide for a family, to me is something that I've had to adjust to the fact that it's not the case anymore. You need two incomes, a lot of people, to sustain a household nowadays because of how expensive the cost of living is and things like that. But having men without any meaning is a difficult situation to be in, because you now have a group of women who don't necessarily need men, but they want a companion and a partnership. And I don't know whether that I'm just finding a group of men who, all the men that are wanting to be providers are finding women who don't want providers, and all the women who want a companion are only finding men that want to be providers, or are lazy and non-ambitious. I'm not sure. But the reason I talk about this is because we want to figure out where this stigma of men's mental health comes in and why it feels like boys are struggling, men are struggling these days, and why it's only getting worse and worse and worse. And I don't know if it's getting worse and worse. Maybe the statistics are being they're being looked at more. Maybe we're more open and we're talking about it. And maybe there's just a transition in the fact that men don't have to be the traditional men of going out, earning the money and coming back. Men now have the ability to chase their passion and the things that they're interested in, just like women once did. And women, to some degree, have been told through the feminist movement that they need to go out and like earn a career and do the things that all men do. And I think that misguides women in the sense of women already have innate worth and meaning and higher value than men. It's just inbred into them. Not inbred into, it's baked into the foundations of how things work, because women are the ones that provide children. Wars, Titanic, like women and children first, gang. Women and children first. And it's because women and children get looked after. And this is the Chris Rock thing of only women, children, and dogs are loved unconditionally. Men are loved for what they do. And there is a massive truth within that. And this is why we talk about the stigma and where it comes from. So I think a lot of the stigma around men's mental health comes from within. So we believe we need to be strong, we need to be independent, and we need to provide for our family. I agree with that statement, but because the world is changing, it can make it very difficult. It also puts a lot of pressure on men, and it can mean that men feel like they're constantly failing. With the things like social media showing you that success is Lamborghinis and a shit ton of money, it can be very difficult when you're just an average guy doing an average job, struggling to make ends meet every month. You could just feel like you're constantly failing. And if you've got a partner who's not very supportive within that, I can imagine that's quite difficult as well, because you have someone who wants you to provide and do these things, but also wants your time. And you have this difficult choice as a man. Do you go out and work and earn the money, or do you stay back and spend time with your friend, your family, and your wife? What do? You're in this really sticky situation where you need to go and earn money to provide, but that means sacrificing time with your family. We talked about it earlier, the difference between competency, or the combat and the butting of heads between competency and connection. And I think this is because you have a choice to make and you can't have everything. And I think this is where being balanced as a family and as a whole is really important, as a partnership is really important, but not necessarily being balanced as individuals, because I think it can be quite difficult to be balanced as individuals. You can provide for yourself and look after yourself and all things like that. Everyone can do that. But when you become a unit trying to do something bigger, like create a family, it can be quite difficult. So because we believe we need to be strong, independent, provide for our families, if we aren't strong, or we perceive ourselves to be weak in some area, i.e. we're struggling with our mental health and we perceive that to be weak, that to us is us failing. If we are independent, we're trying to be independent, and we feel like we need to call on others or help others, we feel like we're then a burden to some people, and we want to provide for our families. If we aren't providing, or we're struggling to make ends meet, that can make us question our worth as a man. Not only that, but now that the landscape's changing and that need for a provider is now almost gone, it then questions, well, what is our worth? Where do we get our value from, and how do I know that I am actually good at what I'm doing? How do I know that I am a man worth being here? We feel we should be in a better place. We should be a better person. We should be a stronger man. That is a narrative that we tell ourselves all the time. We think that by admitting that we are struggling, we are admitting to be weak. But the opposite is true. To face your problems head on and admit that they are real is the strongest thing you can do. This is how we currently deal with our mental health. We have work stress, insecurities, we have high blood pressure, we have family problems, we have overtime, childhood trauma, we have hitting your quota for the month and not feeling good enough, and we just ignore it, and we hope it all goes away. This is what we need to do. We need to face it, and we need to accept it. So why should you talk about your mental health? Why is this going to be one of the things that can help solve this problem? That which we need most will be found where that which we need the most will be found where we least want to look. Carl Jung. King Arthur and his knights. Little story. King Arthur and his knights went looking for the Holy Grail. They came into the dark woods, and each entered at the point which was darkest to him. So when they were looking for the Holy Grail is something that will rejuvenate and bring the kingdom back to its kind of full glory, and they're sent out to go and try and find it. And what they do is they all get sent out, and when they come to this dark woods, they all enter the woods at the point which is darkest to them. The Holy Grail was needed to restore the world. To find the thing that will restore the world, you need to enter the forest at the darkest point. The Holy Grail is self-actualization. It is becoming the best version of yourself. And you can only do that by dealing with the things that hide in the darkest parts. So there are things within you that you know you should deal with. There are things in you that you are ignoring. There are things that you are just burying your head in the sand and not dealing with. And maybe your mental health is one of them. Maybe there are parts of your mental health that you are ignoring, and maybe soon that's going to be the thing which eats you alive from within. And the only way you can get better and the only way you can deal with these problems is you can do it by looking at the darkest parts. You can do Carl Jung's quote. That which we need the most will be found where we least want to look. Where are you not looking? What are you avoiding? What do you need to do? One of the things that I'm getting most good at, one of the things that I'm getting better at, is I'm looking at my life and I'm looking at all the things that I'm ignoring and all of my biggest problems, and I'm just dealing with them head on. This year has been about dealing with problems head on. I went through my third bout of therapy, and I went for 6 months, and I just put as much effort and focus into that as possible, because I know if I didn't do that, all of these things would come up to bite me again in the future. And that was one of the biggest problems I needed to deal with. I then needed to look into my financial situation and go, what do I need to figure out here? Because I'm getting a lot of stress by being unaware on this situation here. I then needed to look at the places within work that I'm not doing and deal with that. And then I needed to look at the vices that I was using to help me through life in general. The thing that you're ignoring, the thing you know you should do, is the place where you're going to get reward. King Arthur and his knights looking for the Holy Grail, and the Holy Grail being self-actualization, and the way that they found it and the way that they kind of restored the world and restored the kingdom was they entered the forest at the point which is darkest. The Holy Grail is self-actualization. Self-actualization is being the best version of you. The only way you become the best version of yourself is to look at the places and look in the places that you're hiding things. Look into the darkness. To improve your mental health, you must be willing to deal with things that you may be putting off for years. There may be things that you're ignoring. There may be things that you need to talk about. There may be things that you have buried deep below, or there are things that you are dealing with through vices and crutches and things that you know you shouldn't be using. So, why should you talk about your mental health? Pretending a problem doesn't exist doesn't make it go away. By accepting what the problem is, you are accepting that you are vulnerable. Not that you're weak, but that you are vulnerable. Knowing your vulnerabilities means that you are honest. Being honest means that you can speak the truth. Speaking the truth will set you free from your problems. If I ignore something and I pretend it doesn't exist, and I pretend that it's not there, and I pretend it's not real, I'm not giving light to a thing that is actually causing me a lot of problems and a lot of pain, which means that I'm not letting it be true and be real. The thing about speaking your truth and speaking the truth and admitting to your flaws and admitting to your problems is within that is the darkness. And within that darkness is the things that you can do to solve your current problems. If I admit that I'm struggling with some parts of my mental health, I'm admitting I'm vulnerable. Admitting I'm vulnerable means that I can see the truth within that. I'm being completely honest with what's going on. And being able to speak the truth and tell people what I'm dealing with will set me free from that. That will set me free from the problems that I'm experiencing. And that was just the intro. Gang. Oi, we're in. Sorry. Problems we aim to solve. So, why keep going when things get too hard? Dealing with depression. How to gain self-control and improve your self-esteem. Dealing with anxiety. How to identify your holy grail. Oh, create a unique answer to how to identify when you know your well-being and mental health are poor and find the best ways for you to improve it. How to talk to someone, a line manager, a friend, a partner, a colleague about your mental health, and how to listen to someone talking about their mental health. Problem 1. Why keep going when things get too hard? We're going to solve this in the next bit. Problem 2. How to gain self-confidence and improve your self-esteem. And problem 3. How to gain and identify your holy grail. Framework 1. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. Friedrich Nietzsche. Nietzsche. The progress pyramid is my little gem, you could say. It's something that I created to help myself understand the struggles that clients were having and why they couldn't create long-lasting change. And a lot of this was really to kind of deal with my own anxiety around life and the fact that I was just struggling being okay being here to some degree. And the progress pyramid is my answer to come up with the answer to the first question, which is why keep going when things are hard. So you keep going when things are hard, and this is how you do it, is you figure out basically what you want from life. If you figure out what you want from life, we start at the bottom of the pyramid, we work our way up, and we're basically going to do this little loop-de-loop over the top. So figure out what you want from life, and the reason you do that is that gives you some direction. That gives you a place that you're heading towards. That gives you your North Star. That is the direction I'm going. That's where I'm going to keep walking. That gives me your direction. Along that journey, you are going to have to gain some self-belief. And the only way you gain self-belief is by gaining knowledge. Or, said the other way, as you have a direction of where you're heading, you're going to need to gain some knowledge along the way of how to get there. And the way, and by doing that, and by learning what you need to learn to kind of get towards the person you want to be and get the things you want from life, you're going to gain some self-belief that you can do that. If I want to bake a cake, and I've never baked a cake before, I'm going to read a book or a recipe that tells me how to bake a cake. That's going to give me some knowledge, which means the direction I'm heading, baking the cake, is going to give me a lot more self-belief that I can bake the cake once I've read a recipe. So when you figure out what you want from life, you then need to figure out what steps you need to take to get there. And this is why, like, it's really easy just to break problems down into this. What do you want from life? I want a partner. Okay, well, what knowledge do I need to gain? Like, how can I gain some self-belief in the fact that I'm going to be able to get a partner? You may be sat there going, I'm never going to get someone. No one's ever going to love me. I'm going to be on my own forever. Well, how do I back myself and how do I gain some self-belief that I will actually achieve and get that goal? Well, I need to learn what I need to do to get a partner. Okay, well, I need to kind of probably work out a little bit, need to be a little bit more financially responsible. Maybe I need to get better at my job and kind of climb the ranks a little bit. Maybe I need to learn how to talk to people and not be so awkward. Maybe I need to learn that having a shower once or twice a day is probably a good idea. Maybe I need to learn and go and get my hair sorted. Maybe there's all these things that I need to learn, which are going to help me to then when it comes to getting a partner and the thing I want from life. So when you have a direction, you've got the place you're going, you're gaining some knowledge to gain some self-belief, and then you're going to become and get a bit more self-aware of what is going on so you can be accountable to you achieving that goal. So if you think about, you've got an idea of where you want to go, so you've got a direction, you've now got the knowledge that you need to get to that place that you're aiming towards, and then you need to be accountable to achieving that goal. And the only way you be accountable is you need to identify your problems, and you identify your problems by being self-aware. The more self-aware you are, the more problems you will start to identify as things that you can solve that are in the way. So if you think about this, there are barriers stopping you from achieving the life that you want. What are those barriers? The only way you're going to be able to know that is to become self-aware. Once you are on this path and you're moving towards the goal you want, so you've got a direction, you've got some self-belief, and then you're being a bit aware so you can hold yourself accountable to achieving your goal, you're going to come across problems. And the way you solve those problems is to first identify them, and you first identify them by being self-aware enough to know what those problems are. We then need to gain some solutions to those problems, which brings us back down the pyramid. We need to gain some knowledge to solve those problems, and then for us to get the answer. And the reason I say answer is because every problem has multiple solutions, but the solution you pick will depend upon what you want from life. And what you want from life will give you the answer of what you do. Let me break this down into an example that I was talking about earlier when it comes to the two different problems that a lot of people suffer with. Let's go back to the men thing, which is if I go and work loads and I put all my effort into work, that might mean that I sacrifice connection with a loved one, which means I may lose my relationship. If the goal that you want is to have a family, wife, and kids, one of the big proponents of that, and a big component, is having a wife, which means that sacrificing connection and time with my wife is probably not a good idea, which means that when I come across a problem, being that I could go to work or I could spend time with my wife, or I've got this work project I need to finish, or I have this thing to do, this social plan to do with my wife, and take her on date night, which do I choose? Well, the answer comes from what you want from life. Do you want to be successful in what you do more than you want to have a successful relationship? Because if you do, that's completely fine. But if you figure that out to start with, if you figure out what you want from life, that will give you the answer on what you pick from a potential solution to the problem. The problem being, I have two different options for a night. Date night with my wife, work project. Work project's going to help me with whatever it's going to help me with. Obviously, spending time with my wife, happy life. Da, 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 da. You figured out that that's the problem. Which do I choose? Solutions being I go for date night, or solution being I go do work project. But the only way you pick the right answer is to know what you specifically want from life. And that's the way that you go through life without having regrets. So framework one, the question being, why keep going when things get hard, is because we need to identify where we are going. You need to know what you want from life. You need to know what you are aiming at, and you need to have a strong enough reason to keep going. Every morning you wake up and you ask yourself, why the hell have I woken up today? I wish I didn't. The one thing and the reason and the only way you can get through it is man's search for meaning, which is you need a purpose and a meaning in your life, be it a loved one, be it a work project, be it an art project, be it something that only you can solve. But you need something. You need something. We're going to keep going, gang. We're smashing this. We are hammering this. You gain self-belief by becoming more confident. You become more confident by becoming more competent. You become more competent by gaining knowledge. So you gain self-belief and believe in who you are by becoming more confident. The only way you become more confident is by becoming more competent. Competent being you have proof that you can do what you can do and you've learned the things you need to learn. So you just need to gain knowledge. You need to constantly gain and accrue information and accrue knowledge. To find your holy grail, the thing that you need to deal with to be the best version of yourself, you need to practice being self-aware. So for you to be able to figure out what you want from life, to find the thing which is going to restore life, to find the problem within your life, the mental health thing you're struggling with, or the darkness that you're ignoring, or the problem that you're ignoring, you need to be self-aware enough to figure out what that means and what that is. Self-awareness is going to help you to identify the problems in your life. Self-awareness is also going to help you to figure out what the possible solutions could be by allowing you to know this is the problem. I now have this list of solutions that I can pick from. Problem one, why keep going when things get hard? Set yourself a goal so big that when you're on your deathbed, you will be proud of what you achieved and what you continue to fight for. Every day you get up and you question whether it's worth it, you have to have a reason and a meaning and something so big that you do not ever doubt that it is worth it. When you wake up every single morning and you question why you keep going, you have to give yourself a purpose. You have to give yourself a reason, and you have to give yourself a goal so big that you never doubt that waking up and putting that effort in and struggling through that day is worth it. Because the only way that you can get through that depression and that darkness and that questioning if you should be here is to give yourself a reason why you should be here. And the only way you do that is to figure out what's important to you, what you want from life, and figure out your purpose. Set yourself a goal so big that when you're on your deathbed, you'll be proud of what you achieved and what you continue to fight for. Problem 2. How to gain self-confidence and improve your self-esteem and find your holy grail. Identify areas where you lack knowledge and learn everything you need to learn to become more competent. You need to become more competent. You need to learn what you need to learn to gain confidence with who you are. The only way you get more confidence with who you are, the only way you get more kind of stronger in yourself is to identify the areas where you lack knowledge and learn everything you need to learn to become more competent. And problem 3 is, how do you identify your holy grail? How do you know where you should look? You become self-aware through things like counseling, journaling, or understanding some psychological theories that explain the self. So all psychological theories to some degree is speculation. It's someone's worked out a theory that makes sense. And when you look at different psychological theories, some make sense to you and some don't. And that's because some just explain life and explain what's happening and what you're feeling in a way that makes most sense to you. And the way you identify that is by using these psychological theories, by using counseling, therapy, and journaling to become more self-aware as to what's going on for you, what the problems are, and what are the things that you're ignoring which are detrimental to your life. That's how you identify it. Oof. Problem 4. How to identify when your well-being and mental health are poor and find the best ways for you to improve it. So, problem 4. How to identify when your well-being and mental health are poor and find the best ways for you to improve it. Key aspects of mental health. So you have emotional well-being. So this involves understanding and managing your emotions, coping with stress, and maintaining a positive outlook on life. You have psychological well-being. This encompasses aspects like self-esteem, self-confidence, and the ability to adapt to life's challenges and changes. You have social well-being. So this is healthy mental functioning, includes the ability to build and maintain positive relationships with others, as well as feeling a sense of connection to your community or society. You have psychological well-being, a physical state that is not defined by just the absence of disease, but also a lifestyle behavior choices that ensure health and avoidable preventable diseases and conditions, and create a balanced state of body, mind, and spirit. So you have psychological well-being, physiological well-being, the physical state that is not defined by the absence of disease. So it doesn't mean that you just are disease-free, but it means that you have a lifestyle and you do choices that promote being healthy. You avoid preventable diseases and conditions by creating a balanced state within your body, your mind, and your spirit. You have cognitive function, which is mental health. So mental health also involves the ability to think clearly, make decisions, and solve problems. Key aspects of mental health here. So framework 2. So this is something that is very simple. Let me just go. Wait there. Wait there. Wait there. Wait there. Audio, input capture, add existing, toner mic. Fuck. Oi, we're back. So you can see the whole screen now. So framework 2. This is basically the framework that I use to help people to identify how their well-being is. So again, this problem, how to identify when your well-being and mental health are poor and find the best ways for you to improve them. And we do that not only understanding the key aspects of mental health and kind of what goes into like key aspects of it, which basically means that emotions, you need to be able to cope with emotions. You need to encompass all aspects of like self-esteem, self-confidence, the ability to adapt to life's changes. So again, just kind of like, what is the thing that I'm dealing with? How can I be more confident within myself? You want to be able to maintain healthy, functioning relationships with people. It's really important to keep like a big social like component within your life, which is the thing that I've learned, which connection is really important to me. You have psychological well-being, which is like your physical state, so looking after your body, hence the training, hence the how the body, how the mind. And mental health also involves the ability to think clearly, make decisions, and solve problems effectively. This framework's really, really good. Really, 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 really good. I really do promote this. Write down 5 green flags. These are positive behaviors that you do daily and weekly. So, well-being green flags, well-being red flags. Your green flags, these are things that you have decided and know are good for you now and for your future. So, what are things that you should be doing or could be doing that are going to mean that you're moving towards your life? So, say for example, part of it is if we take like a look at these different components here. If you looked at emotional well-being, for example, this involves understanding and managing your emotions, coping with stress, and maintaining a positive outlook on life. So let's say that one of the green flags that you're looking for is that you feel positive about your life, that you speak positively, or that you are finding that you can deal with your emotions really well. Let's say that you have a psychological well-being. This encompasses aspects like self-esteem, self-confidence, the ability to adapt with life changes. So imagine that you've got something like you're available and you're aware that you can deal with life's changes. Green flags to me are things that you know you should be doing that are really healthy for you, that are helping you to create the life and the person that you want to be. Again, kind of moving towards that person that you want to be in life. So for me, when I think of green flags, is I think of what are the things that benefit me the most. For me, reading 5 a.m. in the morning, if I can get up and do that and get up on my first alarm, is a big indication that I'm doing the things that are going to help me move towards my goal. And the ability to get up on my first alarm means that I'm not burnt out and I'm not completely tired. So there's things that I'm looking for. So basically, the less green flags you end up doing each day, the bigger the indicator is that you need to prioritize your mental health and well-being. Your red flags, or write down 5 red flags. These are negative behaviors and things that you do to distract yourself. So this would be behaviors that make you feel better in the moment but worse in the long run. The more red flags that show up, the bigger the indicator that you need to prioritize your mental health. So your green flags, these are things that you have decided and know that are good for you in your future. And your red flags, these are behaviors that would make you feel better in the moment but worse in the long run. For example, for me, my green flags are getting up on my first alarm, reading before work, training 5 times a week, my skincare routine, being present with my partner. Those for me are really important. If I'm not doing those things, there's a big chance that my well-being's in a pretty bad place. When I look at red flags, doom scrolling. If I'm doom scrolling too much, that's probably an indicator that my mental health's not great. If I'm being snappy with my colleagues or my partner, if I'm playing my PlayStation when I want to be when I should be working, or wanting to play my PlayStation, I'm trying to distract myself. If I'm drinking coffee 5 times a day because I'm so tired, or I'm falling asleep on the sofa late at night, this could just be indicators that I'm burnt out and that I don't have enough room in my head. I need some time to look after myself. So the more green flags I have, the better it is, no action required. The more red flags I have, the immediate the action is required. So we keep an eye on both. Am I doing the things? Have I got all 5 green flags? If I'm starting to get down to only doing 2 of them, if for example I'm not doing my skincare routine, I'm not reading or getting up on my first alarm, but I am still training and I am kind of being present with my girlfriend when I'm with her, there's a great indication that my mental health's pretty bad. If I find myself snappy or scrolling too much, or I'm drinking loads of coffee all the time, that could be a red flag that my well-being's in a pretty bad place. So your framework too is just have 5 things that you know are good for you in your future and are indicators that you're in a good mental headspace, and have 5 red flags which are an indicator that you're looking for distractions, or you're feeling burnt out, or you're tired and you need some rest and recovery. Set boundaries for your work-life balance and non-negotiables. Don't reply to your work emails after a certain time. I can't skip my daughter's dance recital. My training doesn't get skipped. Boundaries are an important part of self-care that stops us from sacrificing ourselves all of the time. So one of the things that I think about, ignore the hat, if you don't mind. One of the things that I think about is that boundaries are really important for green flags. These are things that we like focus on and put a priority on and say that are important to us. Your red flags, so this is kind of like an indication of the cycle of addiction. And the reason I bring this up is because to some degree, when you're using red flags or you're using vices, these things could be an addiction to stop you and avoid pain. So when I do more red flags, i.e. doom scrolling, I'm doom scrolling because I don't have any energy left. But that to some degree is an addiction because I'm trying to get some dopamine from it. And the way that addiction works is you feel pain, you use something addictive to soothe or distract you. You get temporary distraction or like anesthetic from it. You get temporary kind of like relief from it. And then there's consequences to doing that. You feel shit from kind of doom scrolling. Like, I don't know if any of you guys get this, but if I'm doom scrolling, at some point I'm going to see something that pisses me off or that I don't like or makes me feel bad about myself. Like, and that's the consequence. I may be doom scrolling to distract myself from the pain that I'm in, but I get some consequences that come up. And then shame or guilt that leads to the pain or low self-esteem that the cycle can start again. So when you are using red flags and vices more and more, all that you end up doing is just feeding into this pain and feeding into this addiction cycle, which causes you to use more red flags. And that's why it's really important to be aware of what yours are. What are your vices? Is it drinking too much? Is it smoking? Is it eating fast food? Is it like, what are your red flags and how can you be aware of them? Because being aware that you're in pain means that you can make a different decision as to what you use to help you soothe that. We don't want to use things like vices, things that become our crutches in life. Is this behavior helping me in the long run? So when we are burnt out and stressed, we often turn to things that relieve the pain momentarily, like drinking, smoking, porn, working more, negative relationships, training. And the reason I'm directing this directly at men is because we really need to be aware, if we're not going to be talking to people, because a lot of people aren't, and I can't convince you to, even though I'm trying, that you need to be aware of where you're at. And these things could be really good. So like to be aware of is that when I'm burnt out or stressed or things are getting too much, I may be drinking more, smoking more, using porn, I may be working as a distraction. I may be kind of like leaning into negative relationships that I have, and I may be training to distract myself rather than de-stressing myself. I may be going to training because life's too much and I don't want to deal with it. Are they beneficial in the long run? And things to focus on when you're stressed or burnt out and overworked. These are things that to bring you back to center. This is how you use those red flags and those green flags to then identify what you can do, because you've identified that you're in a bad place. Now, what can we do? We want to sleep for 7 to 9 hours at night or take regular naps if we're on shift work or we're doing whatever. We want to reduce the main stress factors as much as possible. So what are the things which are causing me the most stress? Is it like, and this is where I go back to dealing with big problems. What are the things that I need to deal with that I'm burying my head in the sand? What is my holy grail? Reduce those main stress factors by looking at where you should look and not distracting yourself. Schedule some time doing nothing. Spend some time without responsibilities or allowing yourself to rest is extremely important if you're getting burnt out. That need to provide, that need to be important, that need to do things for your mental health or to distract yourself, or that need to be a provider and that pressure we put on ourselves. All those responsibilities can be really, really taxing. So allowing yourself some time to do nothing is going to be really important. Stress management techniques like meditation, journaling, or listening to music, long walks in the woods or yoga, just something to bring you into your parasympathetic state. You have two states, basically. You have your parasympathetic state and you have your sympathetic state. Your sympathetic state is your fight or flight. And if you're in fight or flight and you're really anxious and you're on edge all the time, that can be a problem. If you're in your parasympathetic, which is your rest and digest, it means that your central nervous system will be pretty calm. You'll be chilling out a little bit more. That's going to be really, really good for us, because getting into that can be quite difficult if you're just constantly a deer in headlights. So finding things that help you to relax is going to be really, really important. Hobbies, spending some time doing some things you enjoy, socializing, spending some time with friends and family, seeking professional help, regular counseling, therapy are things that you can do to address deeper problems that maybe affect your mental health. I'm going to skip all the way back to these things, or those things that I've suggested, solve these problems. Key aspects of mental health. Having good parts of all of these is going to be really important. And the way you get good parts, you identify when you're kind of falling off the wagon a little bit, and you use this list to help you to kind of get back out of being burnt out, stressed, and overworked. My top 3 for looking after my well-being. This is just me personally. Training regularly. Distress, not distract. So join a friendly community of people striving to do to improve themselves and with coaches who care about. So like the reason I put this in is because I've worked at Arjun for ages, and training regularly helps me to distress because I'm being surrounded by people who are all striving for similar things. But it's more about having something to help me to feel better. Every time I train, I feel better. Helps me to distress. Counseling or therapy, speaking to someone is one of my favorite things to help with my well-being, and having some anti-rumination hobby that allows me to relax and takes your mind off things. So find something that allows you to chill out. Find something that stops you from being in your head. For the longest time, I couldn't watch films. I would just be in my head thinking and overthinking all the time. So I try and find things that help me to switch off. Reading, and a big one for me is socializing, talking with people, having a good time with friends. That really does help me to relax my brain a little bit. Problem 5 and 6. So how to talk to someone, line manager, friend, colleague about your mental health, and how to listen to someone when they talk about their mental health. How to talk to someone. Start with what's happening, how it's making you feel, and be 100% honest. Sounds easier than it is. I know that. Rather than talking about what you're feeling straight away, just start talking about what's happening. So I'm going through a breakup at the moment, and we're currently splitting the house. Or my mum's just been rushed into hospital. Okay, that's what's happening. My mum's just been rushed into hospital. How it's making you feel. I'm really sad that my mum's been rushed into hospital, and I'm afraid that I don't know how long she's going to be alive. I don't know what's going to happen when she's in there, and I'm afraid that I might lose her. And then just be 100% honest. I'm afraid that I might lose her because I don't feel like I'm capable of living without my mum. I feel like she is the best thing for me. She helps me with so much stuff, and I love her so much, and I always feel safe because I know she's there. And if she's going to the hospital, I'm afraid that she might not be there. It's all about starting with what's happening, just the facts. It's then talking about how it makes you feel, and it's just about being 100% honest. If you can do that while speaking to people, you're going to feel a lot better. And how to listen to someone talking about their mental health. Well, there's a difference between empathy and sympathy. So empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another, while sympathy is feelings of pity or sorrow for what someone else's misfortune. So when someone comes to you with a problem, you want to try to be empathetic to their situation. You don't necessarily want to be sympathetic, because sympathetic to some degree can be patronizing. I feel sorry for you for what you're going through. Whereas empathy is, I understand what you're going through. You may not have gone through it yourself. And the way you be empathetic is you keep one foot in your life and you put one foot in their life. You ground yourself in you and where you are, but you imagine yourself in their shoes. You step into their world and you try to understand what they're going through. That's empathy. And that's how you make a difference. That's the difference between empathy and sympathy, and how you listen to someone. Empathy is putting one foot in another's world while keeping one foot in your own. It's listening without judgment. It's being present. It's not giving advice, and it's being understanding. And then it's self-disclosure. Basically, you want to listen without judgment, so just don't judge what the person's saying. Don't be like, "Oh, I wouldn't have done that," or I don't think I'd feel like that." It's about being present. What are they saying? Just listen. Don't give advice. They don't need advice. They just need to talk. Don't need to tell them what they need to do. That's not being empathetic at all, because they probably got the answers. Not only that, but you are assuming that you know the problem in the first place, which you don't, because they may not understand the full problem or meaning behind it yet. Just be understanding, just listen. And then self-disclosure. Self-disclosure is one of my favorite things to do, which is when someone's talking about a problem they're going through, you talk about a problem you're going through. Not necessarily because you're trying to better them, but because you're going to make them feel more comfortable. When someone's like, "Oh, I'm really scared my mum's been rushed into hospital." Oh, I really understand that feeling. Like when my dad got rushed into hospital, it was the worst thing ever. It just helps them to feel a little bit more relaxed. When the other person is hurting, confused, troubled, anxious and alienated or terrified, or when he or she is doubtful of self-worth, uncertain as to identity, then understanding is called for. The gentle and sensitive companionship of an empathetic stance provides illumination and healing. In such situations, deep understanding is, I believe, the most precious gift one can give to another. When someone's struggling, the way that you can help them the most is to completely understand what they are going through. Be sensitive and empathetic to what they are dealing with. Some resources for you. The Mind website's really good. If you're struggling with your mental health, call the Samaritans. Shout is really good to text. If you're a parent or you are a younger person reading this, Young Minds can be really good. Some Bristol-based stuff like the Priory or Suicide Prevention UK. Some external resources. Self-awareness is the key, gang. Being a man is really difficult, but you're making your life a lot harder sometimes. To walk through life without knowing why you think what you think and do what you do is like walking through a minefield with your eyes closed. At any point you can step on something that explodes and you didn't see it there in the first place. Sooner or later something will blow up when all you had to do was open your eyes. Thank you. It's a weird landscape at the moment. And men's mental health gets talked about a lot, but men get real squirmish when other men talk about their own mental health. And I think that's because a lot of men don't talk about their mental health, which means that when someone else is talking about problems they're going through, they don't know how to respond because they don't know how to deal with what they're going through. And all it comes down to is being empathetic to someone else, but being empathetic to yourself. Be sensitive to what you're going through and be kind to yourself through the process. And the more kind you can be to yourself, the better you can be with others. So even though men struggle to open up because a lot of men struggle to listen or to kind of deal with it appropriately, I think it's really difficult. I think it's the biggest problem. I think we're our own worst enemy to some degree in this aspect, because men struggling is something that needs to be addressed. And how we address it, I'm not 100% sure. But I just think that for men as individuals who are struggling with their mental health, you guys need to find a purpose, find a meaning, just kind of set a direction and a course of where you're headed, and learn as much as you can learn to try and get to that goal, because that's going to give you purpose and day-to-day meaning. I think if you're struggling with your mental health but you're not sure why, you need to look at the places you're avoiding looking at and try and dive deep into there. You need to be okay talking with others. You need to allow yourself to open up. What's happening? How does that make you feel? Just being 100% honest with someone. And if you're someone listening to a man who's struggling with their mental health, you need to be able to be empathetic by having one foot in your world, one foot in theirs, and trying to understand. No judgment, no advice giving, just simply understanding, because that can be one of the most beneficial things you can do. It's 9:45. I don't know how long we've been going. I'm done from that. I'm burnt out. Red flag. Thank you for watching. My name's Charlie. This is Hat the Body, Hat the Mind. We'll see you.